somehow there was this voice in the back of my head that just said, look, you've said you're going to do it, so just do it. What's the worst that can happen? No one buys anything. So what? You don't need to tell people no one bought anything. Just do it, you know? So I did it.
Welcome to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of She Clicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. This episode features Rachael Talibart, a former London solicitor, now photographer, who's most widely known for her dramatic fine art images of the sea, with prints in galleries in Europe and the USA. She also leads photographic workshops, writes for photography magazines, and has produced several monographs. As you'll probably notice, I had quite a bad cold when we recorded this one. Hi, Rachael. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Angela. It's really, really nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited about these new podcasts. It's great to speak to so many women in the photographic industry about their experiences. I'm aware your first career was as a solicitor and you went through a career change to become a photographer. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that and what convinced you that photography was the right career for you.
Great question. Yes, so the first thing I should say, which I think is really important, is that a lot of the interviews with me and films and things miss out a big chunk of time between me leaving the city and me going pro as a photographer, about 15 years, in fact. And so because that's kind of boring for the story. So it can look to people as if I made this huge, brave leap from a full-time legal career to being a full-time photographer in one go, which isn't true. And I think it's really important to emphasize that because it could be a bit demotivating for people. They think, I couldn't do that. So I didn't. I had 15 years in between, finished my legal career when my second child was born, my daughter, because I felt I wanted to devote more time to the kids and because, frankly, I was bored at work. And then for 15 years, I raised my kids. I went back to university, did 2 more degrees, which was great, kept the brain going. But absolutely threw myself into raising a family and I loved it. I feel that was a real privilege for me to be able to do that. But during that time, photography, which had always been a passion since my late teens, just became more and more important to me as a creative, fulfilling experience, a hobby. And then, of course, after doing that for many, many years, getting more and more serious about it, I became aspirational, started to sell stuff. So I would say I was already passively semi-professional before I took the big leap in 2015 to go see if I could make it as a career. It was, looking back, I see that was probably a luxury for me, that I was able to do it so gradually. Would I have done it if I was in a different situation? Maybe not. I think it might have been too hard for me. I don't think I'd have had the courage to make that big leap that sounds so brave.
When you said you did a couple of degrees, were they anything to do with photography or were they completely different?
They were a very, very tiny bit to do with photography in that the first of those 2 was English Literature BA with the Open University. And you were allowed to do a tiny bit that wasn't on your major. So my major was English Literature and every course was English Literature except you could do this tiny course that wasn't. And the Open University, I think they still do it, I'm not sure, had a new course then, because this is many years ago, on digital photography. And I'd been analog all right up till 2008. I was analog. And then my husband bought me a digital camera for Christmas without asking me. And I must admit, he must have thought my reaction was poor to this gift because I was snooty about it. I just thought, no, that's not proper photography, which was rubbish, of course. And so then I thought, well, I need to really get on with this and stop being so silly. Come on, 21st century, Rachael, get with it. So I did this course with the Open University. I think it was 3 months and it came with Photoshop Element 6. So we are going back a long way. And of course, I'd never edited a photograph in software before. Developing to me was a messy, wet process. So it was a huge, I'm not, like most people of my age, I'm a digital immigrant, not a digital native. So it was a big, big, steep learning curve for me, but I loved it. And along with that, the people in my cohort had a Flickr group, and I had no idea about things like Flickr. What the heck's this? Photo sharing online. And I got sucked in and became obsessed. It was a lovely group, really supportive, very diverse group of photographers, all in a similar situation to me. And it was lovely. And yeah, down the rabbit hole I went.
Did you ever think about going back to your previous career, or once you sort of stepped away, was that it, as far as you were concerned?
Oh, yeah, my God. People have stress dreams. Everyone has stress dreams sometimes. And other people might dream about sitting an exam they haven't revised for, or giving a presentation when they're not ready, or they're naked, or whatever weird dreams people have. My stress dream is always and still having to go back to the city.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you were glad to be free.
I was. I mean, I don't wish to sort of completely dismiss that career. It was really, really useful. I learned some incredible soft skills that I use all the time. And I met some great people, and it paid very well, which was nice at the time. But it wasn't a perfect fit for me psychologically.
I was just going to ask you whether you learned any transferable skills with that career. Because it's amazing what you pick up along the way.
Tons. Yeah. I mean, learning about, even though I was a lawyer, not a businesswoman, you do learn some business skills. You learn about client care. You learn about professionalism. You learn about communication. You learn integrity, if you didn't already have it, but you learn how integrity applies in the real world. And all of those things now I'm using every single day.
Well, that's really good. I think, if you go to school, you go to university, you learn from your parents and everyone around you how to behave generally, but nobody actually teaches you the in-work skills until you're at work. And then you realise, there's a certain way to answer the phone, or to give someone a call, or send an email and stuff like that. It takes a while to learn it. You don't necessarily think about it.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And you don't really realise you're learning it at the time so much, because you're concentrating, you're thinking, I'm learning how to be a lawyer. And you don't realise that actually some of the core skills you're learning have a much wider application, and will be skills you'll have for life.
Now, you mentioned that you went professional in 2015. That's a very definite date? Well, I suppose a definite year. What was the prelude to that, and what made you sort of say, right now I am a professional photographer?
So I think the word professional is used quite broadly these days, which is cool. I don't mind. But for me, professional means that you are earning a living from it, not that you're picking up some money here or there. So I didn't really consider myself professional when I was, let's say, semi-pro. I didn't use the word professional for myself at all. I didn't even say I was semi-pro. I was just making a bit of money to defray some of the costs of my obsession. But the decision to go professional, to actually see if I could make a living from photography, was definitely a watershed moment for me. And that it came at a time when I had a big decision to make, because I'd finished my MA. I did an MA in literature as well. And it had been, I'd been told that my dissertation could form the basis for a PhD thesis, and that my topic was, I'd found a topic that no one else had done on Victorian literature, which is quite hard, because there are no new Victorian literature books. And there are ever more students. So they're always, finding a new topic is harder and harder. But I'd been told I had done it, and would I like to come back and do a PhD? And when I started the MA, that indeed was my objective, that I wanted. It was a stepping stone to doing a PhD. But during the course of the MA, which I did part-time because of the kids, so it took me 2 to 3 years, photography had become more and more a part of my life. And I had found by the end that although I'd loved doing the MA, I was relieved that it was over. And I thought, right, I will take a little bit of time, and I will not commit to the PhD, yet, and I will just throw myself into photography just for fun and see how it goes. And so I did that for a few months, and it felt so right. It just felt so right every time I was doing the photography. And I realised that I was actually enjoying it way more than I'd enjoyed doing the masters, even though I'd enjoyed that. And then I went on a masterclass in Venice with Michael Levin. So I don't know if anyone listening will know of him. He's a Canadian photographer. It was organised by a workshops business called Ocean Capture, Jonathan Critchley's business. And I'd actually been booked to go on that a year previously, and then at the last minute had to cancel because my mother unfortunately suffered what turned out to be a fatal heart attack. So I had to go and be in the hospital with her for that weekend, and I'm very glad it did, obviously. So this was postponed by a year, and it came around in April 2015, and I went to Venice, and the masterclass was interesting. Michael talked about the business of being represented by galleries and selling fine art, if we must use that term, photography and all of that. And there was also opportunities to go out and make photos. And in the back of my head the whole time, though I was fully absorbed in the masterclass, this, shall I do the PhD or not? I need to make my mind up, was in there just rattling around in my head. And on the last morning, the group went out. There was fog, which is lovely in Venice. Went out to photograph, and I love people. I love being in a crowd. I love being with my clients, and I used to, when I went on workshops, enjoy that atmosphere. But when I'm actually making photos, I find that I prefer to be alone. And because I know Venice very well, been there a lot, I just told them I was going, took myself off to somewhere else entirely where there was nobody. And I just did a long exposure. It was a very simple photograph of some mooring bollards, and everything smoothed out. There's no landmarks. But while I was making that long exposure, you've got to wait, right? And it was so peaceful there. And I don't know why, but it was just the moment that I made the decision. I thought, you know what? This is what I want to be doing. I don't want anymore to be sitting in the coffee bar writing my, thesis. I want to be out here doing this, and I'm going to go for it. So then I got back, and I was all like, woohoo! And I said to Jonathan, will you mentor me? I'll pay you lots of money because it's not cheap, but that's okay. You get what you pay for. So he said yes. And I said, my objective is to be the best photographer I can be. And if I can make it as a career as well, that would be bonus. And he said, that's a great objective. I'm glad you put it that way round. And I then worked with him. Well, ended up working with him for about 1.5 years, but it was only 6 months before I started making a living. So I would say that it was the right decision.
Fantastic. I could actually picture you running back to the workshop meeting point, acting like you've had 3 espressos and being very excited, because sometimes these decisions do kind of just come to you, don't they? Not necessarily as a steam train, but kind of like a graduate, like the mist clearing in Venice, perhaps. It's just that's great. That's so
exactly
important.
Right.
And it's really nice that you went on that workshop and you gave yourself that space and time to think about photography, but also it kind of allows other things and thoughts to come in.
Absolutely right.
How important was the mentoring to you, from either a technical point of view or from perhaps just that kind of support point of view?
It was really important, but not from the technical point of view, because I already had the technical skills, because I was definitely an enthusiast already. And that means for me, someone who really knows what they're doing with the camera, as well as all the creative stuff. So Jonathan didn't really need to give me technical support, which he knew because he'd seen me on workshops in the past. But what he did do was he was rigorous about this, and I am now with my own mentees, in making me go away and look at tons and tons of work by contemporary and also past photographers working in the sort of gallery market who aren't necessarily active on social media. So it can be quite hard to access that sort of inspiration, because, we can see lots of photos on Instagram or whatever your social media is of choice, but it's not curated for us. We have to curate it for ourselves, and sometimes that's a really hard thing to do. And some of the best photographers out there now who are selling through galleries and working in that area, which is the area that interests me, don't do social media. I mean, they're so beyond that. They either made their name before it was a thing, or it doesn't float their boat, or whatever. But there is out there an amazing body of work that I just wouldn't see if I relied on Instagram. And Jonathan, every time he would set me assignments, he would include, the first assignment was a list of websites to review. And they would be these amazing photographers. And of course, I didn't always like everyone. That would be ridiculous. If it's art, you're not going to please everyone. It has to be a bit more pushy than that. So, I would go away and I'd look at this work, and then he would require me to write down my reactions and why. Why is so important, isn't it? So why do you like that work? What is it about it that you like? Why don't you like this other work? What don't you like about it? And doing that, I didn't even consciously realize what was going on. But over time, every time I did that, I accumulated this internal visual language that, because I wasn't just looking at one or two, I was looking at tons. I wasn't at risk of plagiarizing anybody. What I was able to do, though, was even subconsciously draw on this new visual language that I was learning. And I think now I can look back, and I can't think of any one photographer who massively influenced me, but I know for sure that the accumulation of all of that was invaluable.
It's really hard to articulate what it is you like about an image, particularly if it's abstract, I think, because it's very easy. If it's, a picture of a person, a portrait, you can identify certain elements and, talk about light and stuff. But if it's a more abstract image or perhaps a detail, it can be really hard to articulate. Certainly, I mean, I'm sure you got better at it, more articulate at it as you went along, but that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, there's two answers to that. Number one, I had the advantage that I'd done 2 arts degrees, which different set of skills, but certainly, as most degrees are these days, they're not narrow in, if you're doing literature, you don't only look at literature. So I'd done courses on art history. So I had the language to, and the basic skills, I would say I was an expert, but the basic skills that would help me be able to discuss a piece of visual art, whether it's a painting or a photograph or something else again, and articulate what I liked and didn't like about it and why. So that was really helpful, number one, for me. Number two, I was very aware, having in a previous life, and I hope I'm not just about to alienate half your listeners, I was a camera club judge for a few years, not a well-known fact. And the comment that I used to get back from so many clubs after I've been was, so refreshing to have a judge who comments on the emotional impact of a photograph before they analyse it technically. Well, for me, that amazed me, that feedback, because it seems to me that must always be the right way to go about it. But that was definitely how I went about it with the work that Jonathan asked me to look at. Now, how did it make me feel before I started talking about the composition and the light and all of those other things? And that can work across every genre, of course.
We'll be right back after this short break. Thanks to LensBaby, the manufacturer of hand-built creative lenses that enable special effects such as velvet, sweet, edge and swirl in camera, and Omni filters that can add creative reflections, flare, colours, blur or distortion, we have 2 prints of 2 Christina Mittermeier images to give away in support of the 100 for the Ocean fundraiser for ocean conservation. Listen to the end of the episode to find out how to enter the draw.
I think it's a really hard thing to do, actually, isn't it? You mentioned being a camera club judge. You know, sometimes you'll see pictures, you think, well, that's just amazing. And it's easier to talk about something that's you are really respond to, you think it's fantastic. Then you see a picture, you just don't like it for whatever reason. And it's quite hard to say that in a way which is helpful and kind, rather than just, it's not for me, and move on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core thing. You've got to be kind. If you've got to be, that's a rule for life, right? Everything.
Yeah.
We just need to be kind. And it's amazing how you can always find something nice to say about a photograph. So, I mean, the classic examples would be, for example, you know, you'd see the picture of a bright orange sky with a completely blacked out, messy foreground that someone maybe just stuck the camera out the window at sunset, and it's in a camera club competition. It's not going to win. It's not even going to avoid the bottom set of pictures. But you can still say, great to see you making photographs. It was probably an antisocial time of day. That's a brilliant skill to have. And now you're going to be able to take that into your landscape photography, and you're going to nail it, because so many people don't realise that the light in the middle of the day is rarely satisfying. So well done. And then you can say, next time, maybe if you see some light that you like, you could find a more interesting foreground, and this is how you could do it. And there's always a way to present the feedback constructively, but it takes a lot of work. I used to come home from those evenings completely, absolutely exhausted, because it's jolly hard work, but it's okay. I don't do it anymore because I haven't got time for it. But, you know, I did enjoy it for a long time.
Yes. And when you were talking about, you know, looking at images from photographers who don't really do a great deal of social media, did you spend a lot of time in galleries? Did you travel a lot to different galleries?
I'm lucky. I live half an hour from London, from Waterloo. So there is always, it's not hard for me to go and see exhibitions, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I recently popped down to the new Centre for British Photography. Have you been there yet?
I haven't been there yet, no, unfortunately, but I am planning to.
I really enjoyed it, actually. And I know that they're planning to sort of have circulating exhibitions so that it won't always be the same stuff when you go. And I just love seeing all these places popping up. It's fantastic, isn't it? The more the merrier.
Yeah, and we've had a few She Clicks meetups at some exhibitions, and the last one I could think of was Vivian Meyer up at Milton Keynes, and it was a fantastic exhibition. But it was a really nice experience because it's quite immersive. She took so many shots of reflections and using mirrors and all sorts of stuff, and they had a few mirrors dotted around the exhibition for people to experiment with. And we had some great fun, people trying to replicate some of her images or include her images in their photographs with reflections and
that's
stuff.
Amazing.
You tend to think sometimes you think of an exhibition being quite a passive experience, but that definitely wasn't. It was very immersive. It was great, really good. So yes, hopefully we'll have more of those.
That does sound lovely. I wish I didn't make it. Yeah, I didn't make it to that, and I wish I had done. Now I'm feeling grumpy with myself for not going.
Was sort of exhibiting in a gallery always your intended, not so much endpoint, but outcome? Was that what you were aiming for?
Yeah. I actually, looking back, I'm sure that's the case, because I have a very real proof of that, because I'm a bit mad, and sometimes I just get carried away with something new and go, or hell for leather. And so the April 2015 was that epiphany moment, as I've called it, somewhat tongue-in-cheek. And in October 2015, I had my first solo exhibition.
Wow.
And I'd hardly exhibited at all up till that point, just like a picture in a camera club exhibition or something like that. So I went from 0 to 60 at an alarming speed. And it was so stressful, I tell you. The number of times I thought, no, I can't do this. What am I doing? This is too hard. How much hubris can you possibly have, Rachel, to think that you could do this? You're not ready. And I just, somehow there was this voice in the back of my head that just said, look, you've said you're going to do it, so just do it. What's the worst that can happen? No one buys anything. So what? You don't need to tell people no one bought anything. Just do it, So I did it. And I loved it. I'm really glad I did it, despite the unbelievable burden of stress. Even, for example, down to the fact that 2 weeks before, the gallery said to me, "Oh, we don't think you've got enough pictures for the walls. We need twice as many." So with 2 weeks' notice, I had to muster another 20 framed prints. And that was just insane. But I did it. And I'm so glad I did, because at the end of it, the confidence boost from knowing that I had actually been able to do this, whether it was brilliant and everything I dreamed for it or not, the point was it happened. I did it, which meant that I could do it again. And that was just such a boost to my confidence.
And tell us a little bit about that exhibition. How did you find the gallery? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? What did you show?
So there was a little local gallery. They've retired since, which is a shame. A little local gallery in Weybridge where I was getting my framing done. So I knew them because I'd spent money getting stuff framed there, not just my photographs, but if my husband and I bought something that needed to be framed by someone else. And I went along one day with something to be framed, something we bought on holiday. And I said, I'm a photographer. And they said, not another one. And I said, do you fancy doing something a bit different? It's always a general hanging in here. Do you want to do an exhibition for 2 weeks? And would you give me the space? And to my absolute amazement, they said yes. I was absolutely convinced myself that everyone was always going to say no to me.
Yeah.
Don't know why. I think that's just that you're beginning. You just can't imagine anyone saying yes, right? Why would they? But they said yes. And then there was a lettings agency just across the road from them, literally looks out at that gallery from their windows. And they had licensed one of my Weybridge sort of stock landscape photos for their website. And so we'd had a dialogue and we got on well socially. We chatted more than just about the licensing. So I poked my nose in there and I said, "Hi, it's Rachel. Nice to see you." We had a nice chat and a cup of tea. And then I said, "So I'm doing this crazy thing. I can't believe I'm doing it. Look, I'm doing this. Do you fancy doing some client entertaining? Would you like to sponsor the private view?"
Nice.
And again, I expected them to say no. And they said yes. They said, "Coincidentally, we've just been thinking about doing some client entertaining. This would be perfect. You must exhibit the picture we've licensed." That was the only prerequisite.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It was an exhibition in Weybridge, so it made sense. So that's what happened. And they brought all of their clients to the private view, all these, because it's a very high-end lettings agency. We have this estate in Weybridge called St. George's Hill, which is where it's now full of Russian oligarchs. But at the time, it was just full of super rich people. And they came to the exhibition and they drank all the wine and ate all the food. And guess how much they bought? Guess.
Oh no. No sales?
Correct. They bought not a single thing.
Oh, they just ate all the crisps and drank the wine. You know what I would have done? I would have turned up with a packet of red dots and I would have gone round, just sticking a few on surreptitiously so people thought they were selling. That might have got the ball rolling.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't do that, but that's a really clever idea. I should have consulted you. I didn't know you then. But I did invite people myself as well. And enough people bought prints on that evening. Enough of my acquaintances who got drunk enough bought enough prints that we had by the end of the evening broken even, or I had by the end of the evening broken even.
Oh, lovely.
So, and then it ran for two weeks. I was in there almost every day stewarding all day. And I did end up, the gallery made a shed load of money because I had to pay them to frame all of these prints. But I made up making a little bit of money, nothing considerable, but it showed me that I could do this.
Yeah.
And that was, even if I hadn't covered my costs, that would have been that would have been enough of a reward.
Yeah. And of course, you learn so much in that process because suddenly you discover all of the things. You kind of think, oh, yeah, I'll get some prints done. I'll have them put in a frame. We'll do this, we'll do that. But you learn about all the other little things like, are you actually going to have to do the hanging? Are you going to do the spacing? Is the gallery going to turn around and say you need twice as many prints? All of that sort of stuff you discover. And you can take that and build upon it, can't you, for the next time?
Uh-huh.
So is that what you did? Did you then sit down and map out your next exhibition?
Absolutely right. Well, after that, I got invited to do some group exhibitions with other photographers that I knew socially. And those were really great. Mm-hmm. But I didn't put on another solo exhibition that I had. In fact, every solo exhibition I've had since hasn't been my idea. It's been suggested to me by others because a big thing happened in very early February, really, 2016. I started publishing the work I've become most well known for. And that work I'd been doing in winter 2015 while this exhibition was going on. I was also down at the coast doing this work. Mm-hmm. And then into 2016, finally getting really good conditions and getting work that was the best I'd produced of this genre so far. And I shared some of it on Twitter, and initially Steve Watkins, the late Steve Watkins, who was a huge supporter of me and a wonderful man, much missed. Mm-hmm. He saw the work, loved it, and pushed it out there. So published it, gave me the double-page spread at the beginning of Outdoor Photography magazine, and he was just lovely about it. And then it started to get more and more attention, and it won some awards, and it got out there into the world. And then people started approaching me to do exhibitions, and that was really, really nice. So I don't know if you know Finn Hobson in Brighton Photography Gallery.
I don't, no.
He said, okay, lovely guy, really like Finn. And we were friendly anyway. So I'd been down to the gallery. I'd bought things. I chatted to him, not because I wanted him to do anything for me, but just because I like to support other photographers and he's a nice guy and I like his work. And he just one day said, would you like to have a solo show in my gallery? And I said, yes, of course. So then I had that solo show. And then a gallery in America reached out to me, American phrase, but they're American.
Oh, wow.
And invited me to exhibit in a group exhibition there. And because it went well, they then offered me representation. And the thing is, the more that happens, the more new stuff happens after it. It's like a tree, that it starts spreading out and you get more and more reach.
Yes.
So it all happened quite organically after that.
Yeah. You never really know where these things are going to lead, do you? You start doing something and like you say, you just suddenly somebody pops into the gallery and sees something and then they give you a business card or they follow up with an email or something. And you never quite know. Sometimes it's nothing. Or sometimes you might just make a really great friend that you can, email or call every now and again to get a little bit of support or advice or something like that. But sometimes it can lead to representation in the States, which is amazing.
Yeah. Definitely right. There's a lot of talk online about, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? This ridiculous fake dichotomy. And the idea is that, if you're a proper artist, you're an introvert and you're very deep and, you go off on your own and you're in your lonely garret and so on. I'm like most humans, I'm an introvert and an extrovert mixed up together. And the extrovert bit of me likes people and likes talking to people and meeting people and being friendly with people and chatting. And I think you, like in all life, including art, you need both.
Yeah, and I would class myself as an extrovert in the same way, in that I like to talk through ideas with people. And, that's why during the pandemic, for example, I set up a few different Zoom groups, because otherwise I just wasn't getting the outlet to have conversations with people. Zoom is actually quite limiting when you try and have a conversation with half a dozen people. But, it's just one of those things. If you think through a process verbally, then, you need to be with other people.
Yeah, I think it was great what you did during the pandemic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's we're still doing the She Clicks coffee mornings and they're great fun. We still have quite a laugh every Thursday. Do you still get a buzz from seeing your images hanging in a gallery or in a magazine? Because you've been doing it a while now.
It never gets old. It just never does. I had a big solo show in America in the autumn, and went out to the opening to give an artist talk and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into the gallery, and there's 10 of my prints, huge prints of my work in this big white space, all beautifully hung. She's really good, the gallery owner there.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually almost cried.
Oh,
I felt so emotional just seeing the work there. It wasn't my first solo show there either in that space. So I had that experience before, but it just never gets old. It just is so nice.
And do you enjoy the preparation process, or is that just incredibly stressful still?
I've got better at it. I have got better at it. I know what I'm doing. I know how to minimize the work involved. I've just learned through necessity how to work in a way that won't overwhelm me. I wish I could say I've learned that with books. I'm just about to publish my 4th book, and I'm still working on how to not get stressed about that. Uh-huh. But with the exhibitions now, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, good. And I mean, with the whole process, whether it's an exhibition or a book, do you get to a point where you think, well, I've got this collection of images, now I'm ready to have an exhibition, or now I'm ready for a book? Or do you think, well, I've got half as many as I need to crack on and get some more photographs, and then I can do it?
No, the first way round. I can't work the other way.
No.
So for me, it's really, I mean, you have to adopt the workflow that works for you, right? So this is what works for me. I'm not suggesting everyone should be this way. But for me, I can't make good work if I put myself under the pressure of needing it. That's why I almost never do commissions, because it wouldn't work for me. I think it would just suck the joy out of it for me. Mm-hmm. So I go out, make the photographs I want to make, and see what happens.
But so if a gallery comes to you and said, oh, we'd really love to exhibit your work, or somebody, a book publisher comes to you and said, oh, we want to make a book, you think, well, actually, I'm not ready yet. I've shown this work. I've produced a book of those images. Do you ever turn them down, or has that not happened yet?
Oh, I wish I had enough of those approaches to turn some down, but it's just not. That would be me projecting too big of a picture of myself to suggest that. But it's normally they want to exhibit work they've already seen.
Right.
So the work's already there. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with books. It's work that's already been seen. And the hard thing is to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
You sort of feel like, oh no, I'm not exhibiting that picture again, am I? What about one of my new pictures? And the temptation for the galleries is always to exhibit the work that they already know is already successful. So the harder thing is to get them to take on new work. Mm-hmm. So that's the way round it works for me.
Now, you also lead workshops, and I wondered how that works for you, because I know that they book up very, very quickly, because I've witnessed people booking them halfway through one of your webinars that you gave for She Clicks. But how do you sort of resist the pressure to do more and still be able to concentrate on your photography as well? Because I know you're very strict about, you don't take photographs when you're in a workshop, do you?
Hardly ever. When I do photography tours for Ocean Capture, if it's a group I already know well, I might make a few photographs, but it's usually just handheld grab shots. I just don't feel comfortable setting a tripod up and standing there and immersing myself in photography when I've got clients to look after. I first of all, I really enjoy leading workshops. And I've got so many clients that I've got to know. I've had the privilege of getting to know them over a long time, because my workshops business is now in its ninth year of trading. So it's well established. And these clients, I mean, I hope I'm not overreaching. They might see it differently, but I think of them as friends now. And I welcome seeing them, and I welcome seeing how their photography is developing. And I also welcome new clients who have the potential to become these client friends of the future. And it's massively rewarding. The downside is, as you very astutely suggest, balancing that with photography for me is really, really hard. And there have been more times than I could possibly count. I don't want to count them actually because they're too many, where conditions have been completely amazing. And I've known before the workshop, I've seen the forecast, that here is a golden opportunity for me to make photos that I perhaps am trying to get. And I can't because I've got a commitment to a workshop group. And of course, you never cancel a workshop unless it's COVID. You know, you absolutely, you do the workshop and you do it with enthusiasm, even though you can't get the photos and the conditions are exceptional. And that is the downside. But in the end, I think it probably is a satisfactory compromise for me to miss out sometimes on those opportunities, but have the joy of being with these enthusiasts, my clients, and you know, no one in my family cares about photography at all. So I get to spend a day with a group of like-minded, creative people, and they pay me for it. I mean, I can't really ask for more than that.
Yeah, and there is definitely a joy in seeing someone else, particularly if you've helped them capture an image that they're really, really happy with.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a beautiful thing.
I absolutely agree. And it really is. And you must have that on all your SheClicks stuff as well. And it's just an absolute joy. You know, when a client experiences a light bulb moment and you're standing next to them and they've experienced it because of something you've shown them or said to them. And I could get high on those experiences.
Yeah, it is lovely. I mean, SheClicks meetups, what's really nice, you know, we break for coffee and cake or whatever, and people are passing the camera around saying, oh, I've got this shot. And there's nothing but sheer joy and happiness for them, and asking them about, oh, where did you capture that and how did you do it? And that's amazing. Well done. That's brilliant. There's no jealousy or anything. It's just a really enjoyable experience of everybody being happy for someone who's captured a really fantastic image.
Yeah. That's lovely. I mean, that is, to be fair, that's down to you creating the right atmosphere in your group. And that's tremendous. I think that's quite hard to do. There is, in fact, a lot of jealousy seething out there in photography, just as much as there is in any walk of life. But the fact that you don't have it at SheClicks is, I think, incredible. So well done. I really respect that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would say it's the SheClickers who make the group what it is, and they are a really nice, fun group that I like spending time with. And on that subject, it's now time to move on to the section I'm calling 6 from SheClicks. Now, I've got 10 questions from some SheClicks members, and I'm going to ask you to answer 6 of them. So could you pick a number from 1 to 10, please?
4.
4. Okay. Right. Many of your images have names of ancient gods or monsters as their title. Were you always interested in mythology, or did the images inspire you to get into the subject? And that question's from Nadia.
Hi, Nadia. I might know Nadia. I have always enjoyed, well, since I can remember, certainly from childhood, enjoyed myths. Mm-hmm. I'm a voracious consumer, not just literature, but also I love movies and TV and all of these things. I find myself gravitating to stuff with myths. Mm-hmm. And then when for that BA, the Open University BA, I actually did a whole course on Homer, text and archaeology, which was absolutely amazing. And so then I was even more obsessed. And I have got so many books at home about myths. So yes, the interest in myths came first.
Okay, and I mean, some of the images seem to fit them so perfectly. Obviously, that's why you chose them.
Well, it's really hard. That's the hard bit. I've just got some new sirens. In the new book, I want to have at least one siren that no one's ever seen before. And I spent yesterday researching myths to find the right one for that siren. And it's getting harder and harder because the easy ones I've used already.
All part of the process. Okay, so could I have another number from 1 to 10, please?
6.
6, okay. Oh, this is an interesting one. How do you decide if it's a slow shutter speed day or not? Are there certain types of weather, or do you do a bit of both during a shoot? And that question's from Janina.
Great. Thank you, Janina. Good question. Well, these are good questions. Okay, so it does depend, which is a bit of a rubbish answer, so I'll elaborate. In fact, I was just going through a day on Lightroom at the weekend from last year, where in the bulk of the day there were big waves, and I was down at New Haven doing storm waves, and they're fast shutter for me. I just don't want to smooth out these amazing waves, these huge waves. I want to capture. So I generally prefer to work with nature rather than against it. So if nature's offering me up a stormy day, I'm not going to do a long exposure and smooth that out. Mm-hmm. If nature's offering me up a calm day, I might do a long exposure just to accentuate that atmosphere.
Right.
So in the morning and afternoon, well, actually in the middle of the day, it was high tide, big storm waves, fast shutter. But then I have a 3-hour round trip to get to the coast because I live in a suburb of London. So I'm not going to waste that day because that's like carbon footprint and fuel and so on. I need to make the most of it. So when the tide went out towards the end of the day, when we've got much, they're not big waves now because the tide's out, but we're getting some lovely light. I moved to a different location. I went to Berlin Gap and I got the tripod out and I started doing slow shutter work. So I think the answer is actually was suggested in the question as one of the options, which is that to an extent, the conditions are driving my choice because I'm working with nature all the time. I'm not going to work against it. I'm going to work in tandem with it as much as I can.
Yes. So you think about what it's offering you and therefore how you want to interpret it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need another number, please.
Yes. Okay. Let's go for number 10.
Number 10. Okay. Do you use a high frame rate to shoot each wave? If so, how do you select the final image? And that's questions by Liz.
Thank you, Liz. For sirens, so that's the fast shutter photos of big storm waves, I'm using high-speed continuous on my Canon. So, yeah, bursts of sort of 3 or 4 maybe frames per wave. Not always, but these waves, they have a moment where they clash and they peak. It's strangely slow when you're working with them, and you can run off 3 or 4 photos of that peak, and each one will look subtly different. So then the really challenging thing and the really time-consuming thing, which is understood in your question, is afterwards, is going through. I might take 1,000 photographs in a storm. I might take 2,000 or 3,000, depending if it's a really good storm, and several of one wave, and it's going to take me a really long time to go through all of them. And I just don't put myself under any pressure. You know, I usually leave the memory cards for a long time. I don't look at them too quickly. And then it's just a lovely surprise to upload them and just go through. And sometimes I can tell you now, I can think of 2 waves that yielded each 2 portfolio photos, because in the wave's evolution within the burst, there were 2 very different images. This takes a while to find them.
Yeah. And I mean, this is my question now, but do you see high burst rates? You know, we're talking 5 frames a second used to be extraordinarily exciting, but now we're seeing, 20, 30, even 40 frames a second being feasible. Is that an advantage to you, or is that just going to give you so many more images to sort through?
Yeah, it's not an advantage to me. I found I use quite old gear now. My camera is 7 or 8 years old, and I think it can do 9 frames. I think it can do 9. I'm not sure. It can't do many. It can do single figures, frames per second, and that's okay. That's okay. It's enough.
Yeah.
So if I start rattling off 20, I'm going to have too many pictures, and they're all going to look the same.
Okay. Could I have another number, please?
Number 2.
Number 2. How much do you plan your shoots, or do you just go out and see what's there? That question's from Rebecca.
Yeah, I do plan to an extent, but again, it's really connected to what the weather's doing. And I've got so many different projects on the go. They all suit different conditions, and that's really nice. So rather than if I only had one project on the go, that's going to severely limit me in the sort of days that I can make photos. So I have loads of projects on the go, and there'll be one that only works, I'm thinking of one of them, in golden hour when there's no clouds.
Mm-hmm.
Which, great. So, if the forecast, if I've got a day free and I'm not teaching or doing something else, and the forecast says plain blue skies all day, doesn't matter, because I've got that project. I can do that. I'll head out for the end of the day and enjoy an hour and a half on a sandy beach with the perfect light for that project. So I do, however, also look at the forecasts for very specific conditions. So, for example, Storm Noah came through last week. I knew it was coming. I checked the forecast and I had the day free. So I was able to go down and make some more sirens. So, yes, it's working with the weather and doing some planning, but also having enough projects on the go and enough ideas that I can, if I've got a day set aside for photography, which is rare, even if the conditions aren't a Storm Noah, it's still worth me going, but I might choose a different location. Mm-hmm. The project where I want that's direct sunlight at the end of the day, I need sand for that. So I will say, right, today I need to go to this beach because it's sunny, and so I'm going to have to do that project, and I need this beach for that project. And then I check the tide, and hopefully it all comes together.
And do you use any specific apps to help you with the forecasts, either the tide and the weather and the direction of the light?
Yes, so I have a very favourite tide app. It's called Nautide, NAU, as in nautical, NAU Tide. Mm-hmm. And that gives me lots and lots of tidal information. You need to know a lot more than just when is high tide and low tide. You need to know, is it a big spring tide? Is it not? You need to know the heights and all of that. It's really, really useful. And then I'm really old school with the weather, though. I just look at the BBC website. Because sometimes I use, when I'm abroad, there's a Norwegian app or site called yr.no. Lots of people swear by it. So I do use that too. But I haven't found it to be any more or less accurate than any of the others out there.
Okay, so penultimate number.
1.
Number 1. Okay. How much is the weather an influence on whether you go out to capture images? And do you ever think it's too sunny or the sea is too calm? And that question was actually asked by both Rebecca and Carmen.
Well, thank you, Rebecca and Carmen. I do feel I've actually answered that completely in my answer to the previous question, though. So I might say sea above.
Fair enough. Okay, so last number.
7.
Number 7. Did you encounter much resistance from friends or family when you made your career change? Now, obviously, you've explained that wasn't just an overnight decision. It was a sort of 15-year process. But, was it warmly received by friends and family?
I don't think they care. It's like, oh, whatever. Yeah. She's so strange.
Your husband did buy you a digital camera, which, though, didn't elicit the response you wanted initially, I should say.
Yeah.
It's a supportive move.
He's a supportive husband. I wouldn't be married to him if he wasn't, frankly. So, you choose who your partner is, don't you? Unlike your family, you get to choose your partner.
Well, Rachael, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
It's been absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me, Angela.
Thanks for listening to the She Clicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Rachael as much as I did. I'll put links to her social media accounts and website in the show notes so you can keep up to date with her. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find She Clicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for She Clicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography. To be in with a chance of winning one of Christina Mittermeier's prints, email me at podcast@sheclicks.net and let me know which song Christina sings to make animals aware of her presence. The answer is in our first podcast, which is with Christina. At midday in British summertime, on Tuesday the 1st of August, I'll pick 2 winners at random who will each receive a print. Thank you to Lens Baby for making this draw possible.